3, 2, 1.
Very in Los Angeles right now as an art major, as an artist.
How has in the 30 years that you've been practicing, how has your own practice developed and evolved over that time? And where do you see it then going to?
I usually have this idea in my mind, this idea that I know that in 5 years from now I'll be painting, in 10 years from now I'll be painting, 20 years from now I'll be painting. I just know that about myself as as an artist. And but with this idea of like this, I always have this sense of anxiety or urgency. I think that's probably a good thing also. To have that, that for the way I work, I think that's good for me too, because it keeps me pushing myself, right? So I don't, the way my practice has evolved is, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, and I'm just kind of following my, whatever interest is in front of me in the studio. But I mean, things are definitely different now than they were 10 years ago. I think I talk about this too, this idea of like some artists just naturally have confidence, and I really have to work at it. It's not something that comes naturally for me. It's to be confident in what I'm doing, and I can really suffer from low self-esteem in the studio, and I think that really gets in the way of my making my work. So I think my studio practice has changed. How I approached it emotionally is that just for the sake of that, I've been doing it for so long that it's like I don't have to prove that I'm not going to be doing this. I don't know if that makes any sense. I just know, or I feel like I don't have to answer that to other people. I don't have to explain myself.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's a condition of if you go to art school and when you leave, then
right.
There is that.
We talked about that before you started recording. Was this idea of for students, especially grad students, the first 2 years after grad school, that's the hardest, I think, for most artists, because they're on their own. If things didn't immediately happen, which maybe happens to a handful of artists, that they're thrown into the art market, the gallery shows, and usually it's just a slow process of you just have to keep on going as an artist, and you have to find a community outside of school, and that can be very hard. 2 years, 4 years outside of school, and I don't think. I keep in contact with two of my friends, my best friends, that we've known each other for 30 years since we met, our first semester at Cal State Long Beach. And we're all, the three of us are still making art, and we've relied on each other. Sometimes it was just the three of us. Mm. And
so those peer groups have been vital, really.
Right. I think it's important to find your kind of your tribe. Mm. I think if you want to keep, for me to keep on going as an artist, sometimes it's not enough to, I love being in the studio and I can spend hours, in here every day. But you also need to find some sort of support outside of the studio too, or, just to run by ideas so you're not completely, alone. So I think it's important to find some sort of support group of artists. And the good thing now with social media is you can have that immediately online. You can look at images of other artists. They can send you, what they're working on right now in the studio. And I've done that before. I've shown, this is, take a picture of my work in progress, send it to a friend. They've, made a comment, critiqued it, or I'm looking at what they're doing, or talking to them on, through the computer. Some people that I've never even met, that I respect their work, that I've met through Facebook. So I think things have changed, that way. I think, there's more of a, you don't have to be, in New York in the, 50s, or Paris in the 20s, or, now it's like, it's the internet in 2013.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, there's a lot of images that are coming by. The multiplication of images, just the sheer volume of what you're seeing, you have to turn that off too. It can be, it's like, oh wow, there's a lot of people that are doing abstraction right now, like hard edge abstraction, and that can be kind of start influencing the sheer volume of images that you're looking at. And I do think that there's something important about going outside and to see an actual gallery show. And I go to the museum all the time. I mean, to me, the museum, if you don't have a local museum that you can go to, I mean, I think that's an important part for me of my studio practice, is that I can go to LACMA, and I go there maybe, I live down the street from LACMA, so I go maybe once or twice a week and just go look at one painting and leave. That's
it's a great museum to live just down the road.
Right. Literally, I walk over there.
And
so
the Magritte that you quoted in one of your
is in that. That's why that image ended up in my paintings.
Yeah.
And there's a Joan Brown painting that I've looked at for years, that very thick paint, and you can see where people had poked their finger into it. There's a great J. DeFeo painting that's now in New York at the Whitney, in the show, the J. DeFeo show, but it's the smaller version of the rose called the Jewel, and I've looked at that for years. There's paintings that I visit, the Kirchners that they have there at LACMA, I love them. It's just they feel like they're my friends, I'm going to visit them. And I might just be looking at one part of the painting, two colors that are put next to each other, and it's like, wow, just on that violet and that green next to each other. I want to do that in my painting when I get back to the studio, put those two colors together.
It's a very different way of looking at culture than what we're kind of used to now, I think, through the various different kinds of media that we have now.
Right.
Because it's physical and it's present.
Right.
And it's slow.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting idea too. It's that how people view images. Like, I really do think you have to see the painting in person to get that experience of being in the artist's studio. With digitally, like if you're unless you're working with that idea of what does an image look like on the computer screen and trying to make that in your studio.
Yeah.
That's interesting too. But I think digital images are very slick surface and thin, and so I've noticed that a lot of paintings start becoming slick surfaces and thin, and I think it's because we're used to looking at images digitally, on the computer. So I think that has influenced how people have approached making.
And scale seems to be become disconnected.
Right. I just had a conversation with a friend about that. Laura Owens has a show up in LA. It's worth going to see right now. The large-scale paintings, huge. But I thought the interesting thing about the paintings is that you can't tell if they're a large scale or if they're very small scale. They work at both at the same time. I can see that maybe they were thought out as small scale paintings and then blown up. They felt very much to me, even though they're not, I don't think they're computer generated, but they just felt of the computer to me, playing with ideas of scale. Like it's a thumbnail that then is clicked and blown up and then shrunken back down. I thought that was interesting. I don't think that comes into my working at all. Idea of the computer, or digital images, or how we see things that way. But yeah, I can see how that's out there right now. But I do think it's important to be engaged and go see things.
Yeah, I think to be reminded that they're physical objects as well.
Right, and also not just have online conversations with people.
Yeah.
I
mean, you actually the studio that we're in at the moment, you are in a building that you're surrounded by other artists.
Right, and over the last, I've been here for 9 years, so over the last 9 years, other artists have started to move into this neighborhood because there's cheaper space here, there's warehouses along here. And so next door is Fine Art Stretch Bars. I go there at the end of the day, hang out with artists that are working there and have their studios there. So it's nice to have that sort of built-in community. I think that, I'm very lucky that way.
What impact has, because the global financial crisis started in America,
right.
Hit America the strongest. What impact has that had that you can see on artists in LA?
I think you could see what happened is that the places to show your work became less. The galleries closed. And, I think most of my friends right now, most of my artist friends, I think because of that global kind of collapse or whatever, financial collapse, I mean, at the top of the market, it's doing, really well. People are, they're selling paintings for millions of dollars. But I think for most of my friends, it's forced them to not, I don't really know how to answer that. I think people aren't that concerned about, we're just trying to make a living as artists, but we're not, I don't think my friends and I'm not obsessed with money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Though I want to make a living at it and keep on going. So you have to think of that at one, you have to think about that, but I don't think it's not in the studio as I'm working on the work. And I think maybe people have, put that outside of the studio for a while.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good thing.
I was thinking about how it might have impacted with the availability of spaces for artists and that kind of thing.
Well, because there was a lot of empty warehouse spaces here, so that's why the artists started moving into this space, especially it really sped up the last 3 years because all the warehouses were empty. So, of course, the artists move in and then the rents start going back up. But
it becomes a trendy area because
yeah, but I don't know if that's going to happen here, but